Hi everybody, this is Tara again. So this is part 2 to the video that I posted last night. I apologize. I ran out of storage and so my camera cut me off mid-video, so I didn't get to finish. And then it took me like 4 hours to post it and I fell asleep. So this is the second video, the follow-up video to last night's video with the signs. So where I left off was, so I asked God to give me a sign and I asked him to use an apple. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to use the apple. Like I said in the last video at the end, I wasn't sure if I wanted to use the apple, but it kept popping into my head. So I was like, you know what? Okay, since I'm keep thinking about it, we'll go ahead and use an apple. So I asked him to give me a sign. So a couple hours went by in the day. Started working, my mind's not really, it's on work stuff. And so I wasn't really thinking about it. And I ended up taking a lunch break. And then on my lunch break, still not really thinking about it, I was going to go down to a gas station and just to get a soda and a snack and then come back. But as there's like a little store, a Salvation Army store that is right across the street from my work, kind of diagonal, like a building or two down. And so I was on my way to the gas station, and I've been there many times before, but I had no intentions on going there this day. But I wasn't even thinking about it. I was driving to the gas station, and then suddenly the Salvation Army popped into my head, and suddenly I had this strong urge to pull in there. So I quickly pulled in there. In fact, I even had to slam on my brakes a little bit just to get into the parking lot because I was passing it. So I get out of the car and start walking up, and I was like, I'll go in here and check it out since it's on my mind. Not thinking about it still, but then on my way in, right as I'm about to go into the door, I get hit with the memory of, oh, the apple, I wonder if I'll see any apples in here. And I'm in here all the time. It had been a couple of weeks since I've been in there, but I do go there a lot on lunch breaks. But so I opened up the door, and as soon as I opened up the door, there's this table to my right that's it's a round table. And so as soon as I opened up the door, there's this table, and on this table is dishes laid out real nicely, and in the middle of the table there is a bowl of fruit, and there are a couple of apples sitting there right on top. And I was like, oh wow, there's a couple of apples. And then I started thinking in my mind, praying to God, is this from you, or is this a coincidence? And so I just was going to just I discounted it. I was going to brush it off. And so I turned around and I went around the corner, and as I go around the corner, on top of the shelf right in front of me, I look up and there is another apple. And then I was like, oh wow, that's weird. And then I turn around the corner again, there's another apple. And every single time I turned around in this store, I was seeing apples, and I've never noticed that before. I go in there all the time, and I've never noticed that many apples in there. Every time I turned around, there was apples. And then my daughter calls me midway through, and right now my mind is floored. I'm like, oh man, is this from God? God, is this you? I mean, what's the chances all these apples would be in here on this day? And I get a phone call from my daughter, and so I'm telling her about everything, all the apples I'm seeing. And as soon as I get done telling her, babe, there's apples everywhere, as soon as I get done telling her that, I turn around, and right in front of me, because I was very close to the shelf, and right in front of me, I had to back up because it kind of freaked me out a little bit, but there was 2 glass containers with bushels of apples in them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Megan, I just turned around and there was a whole lot more right here. And they were everywhere. And I even made the comment to the sales lady. I was like, you guys have a lot of apples here. I've never seen that before. She's like, yeah, I never really noticed it either. Or I never noticed us having a bunch of apples before either. So it was just really, really weird. And so it's on my mind. So I left the store and it's on my mind, and I'm thinking, God, that there were so many apples in that store. It's kind of hard to believe that it wasn't from you. And so I left the Salvation Army and I started heading down to the gas station like I was originally going to. And whenever I got to the gas station, remember, I was just going to go there and then come straight back to work. But when I went to the gas station, the power or the internet was down, and so they were only taking cash, and I didn't have any cash on me. So I tried to use the ATM, but I guess that runs off the internet, and they said, and so that wasn't working either. So I had to leave that gas station and go to another. And so instead of going to that gas station and coming straight back, I ended up going down the street a little bit to a next gas station. And because I had to do all that, it resulted in me getting back to work about 15 to 20 minutes later than I was originally planning to. And because of I was running late, I was able to pull in at the exact same time one of my coworkers pulled in. And a little history of that morning. So this coworker I'm about to tell you about, she's a dear friend of mine. She knows me. She knows about the signs and how I always ask God for signs and for confirmation on things that I don't quite know, and she knows about my faith, and she shares her faith with Jesus Christ too, and so she knows that I ask for signs a lot and that He's always delivered. He's always given me my answer. And so that morning I told her about the sign. I told her that I had asked God for a sign if I should put an offer in on this house right away. And she kind of looked at me like she wanted to ask, well, what was the sign? But she said something stopped her from asking. And I almost told her, I was about to tell her what I had asked for, the apple. But something stopped me from asking her. Like, I was like, no, it's not the right time, And she thought that in her head too. I won't ask her. I'll let her tell me in her own time. So that was weird. So that a little history of that morning. So anyways, fast forward, when I pulled back into my office parking lot after going to the gas station down the street, I was able to pull in because I was late. I was able to pull in exactly when she did. And I still have everything on my mind from all the apples I saw at the Salvation Army. So that's all running through my head. So when we pulled up next to each other, we rolled down our windows, she could tell that I had something on my mind because she instantly said, "What's wrong?" And at that point, I felt the need to tell her. I was like, well, this is what happened. I was asking God for a sign, like I told you, but what I didn't tell you is that I was asking for Him to show me an apple. And I told her, how I went into the Salvation Army and how there was all those apples in there. And then I was just kind of floored because there were so many, and it's hard to doubt that because there were so many apples that I've never noticed that before. And she's like, "Oh, well, that's really weird, Tara. I almost asked you what sign you had asked for, but I didn't because I figured you'd tell me on your own time. But let me show you this video. I was actually watching this a little bit ago, and it's a woman that's making these glass apples." And she's like, "I just felt that was so interesting how they're made, and they're so pretty." And so here's the thing, guys. Whenever I was on my way back from the gas station to my work, I was praying in my head. I said, "God, it's hard to imagine that these apples that I just seen were not from you. But in the event they weren't, I really would like to have another confirmation. Can you please give me another confirmation? Show me another apple." And so when I got back to work, and we pulled up the exact same time she did, which that was interesting, because if it wasn't for that gas station having the internet down, I would never have been 15 or 20 minutes late. I would have been here a lot earlier than her. I would have went inside, got my mind distracted on other stuff, and we might have never even had this conversation. But because I was late, I showed up the exact same time. We had the conversation, and she was my confirmation. On my way back from the gas station, I was asking God to give me another confirmation, another apple. And then she shows me this video that she had just got done watching recently with this woman who's making these glass apples. She doesn't even like apples. She doesn't have any apples at her house. She doesn't like them. But she was fascinated by this. And so she's showing me, this phone is like in my face, and she's showing me these glass apples. And it hit me at that moment. It hit me. All day long, the whole timeline of being late to the gas station or being late coming back to work, her showing up the same time I did, the reason why she couldn't tell me this morning, why she had a feeling not to ask me this morning what was my sign for, is because God was going to be using her as another confirmation. And so she didn't ask me, and I felt the need to hold back and not tell her this morning, and that's because God was giving me that feeling. God was giving us both that feeling to stay quiet about what the sign was, because he was going to use her as a confirmation. Because on my way back from the gas station, I'm praying for one more confirmation. Gave me another confirmation with an apple, and then she pulls up this video that she's been watching, beautiful glass apples. So he used her to confirm. And so it all clicked, and I just thought that was amazing. I just, and I knew that it was from God. So for the rest of the day, there was a few hours left in the day, I was like, you know what, this is from God, this is what he wants, I'm going to put an offer in this house, I need to talk to my husband. And so, a few hours went by, and I'm finishing up work, and all this is still on my mind. There towards the end of the day, someone that lives with me, a family member also works with me, walked in, and I told him, I said, name a fruit. And he quickly said apple. And so he doesn't even like apples. His favorite fruit is peaches. But for some reason he said apples, and he didn't know about any of this. And I was like, yay! So that worked out perfectly. And then towards the end of the day, I was running a little bit behind, and so I needed to stay after work a little bit. But the rest of the guys were coworkers were gonna head out, and so I walked them outside to get some fresh air, and then I was gonna go back in. Well, when I went outside to get some fresh air, I pulled up my phone, and I was gonna go through and watch a video on someone that I watch. Bold Ministries. If you don't know it, you should check it out. It's great. She's so sweet. She's so awesome. I feel like she's genuine. She gives prophetic, or she gives out words to certain people and to all people. It just depends. Sometimes it's just for a specific someone, and sometimes it's for many people. It's kind of hard to explain, but you should watch it. It's definitely good. Bold Ministries. Bold Existence. I think it's Bold Existence, not Bold Ministries. Bold Existence. Well, anyways, I was going to watch one of her videos that morning at some point, and I got distracted and I couldn't watch it. So later on in the afternoon, while everyone's leaving to go home, I pulled up that video because I was going to watch it. Well, when I pulled the video up on my YouTube, I seen the video that I was going to watch earlier that day, and I was getting ready to push it. But then as soon as I was getting ready to push it, my YouTube kind of refreshed on its own, and that video disappeared. But another video of hers popped up, very front, and the title of it was, it just caught me. The title of it said, "It's time to move!" exclamation point. And so I was like, wow, what's the odds of that? And so I went ahead and clicked on that video, and I opened it, and this video that she did, it was about 5 minutes long, give or take, and it was so, like, I felt like she was talking to me. It was talking about how it's time to move, and that there's 3 words that the God was giving her, and it was movement, momentum, and speed. And it was I'm telling God, I'm asking God, do I need to put an offer in right away? Do I need to do this now? The video was just so, I felt like that video was made for me, and for all I know and for all I believe, that video was for me. And so thank you, Bold Existence. I love your work. You guys are great. And so the timing of that video and when it popped up, it was telling me, yes, you need to move. You need to move now and act fast. Trust God. He's got you, but move. And so I was even more confident. So I went home, and I was very excited. I was going to talk to the family about it, and then I ended up walking in the door, and I went to go, we did have some apples on our table at one point, and so I went to go see if there was any more apples left, because apples are on my mind. And so I walk in and go into the dining room, and there was 1 apple left on the table. So I picked it up, and my daughter walks in, and she's like, "Mom, where'd you get that?" And I was like, "It was on the table." She's like, "Mom, I just ate the last apple." And I was like, "Honey, no, there's an apple sitting right here on the table." She said, "Mom, I'm telling you, I ate all the last apple. There was no more left." And then my husband, I guess, he told me that when he first got home, he went to go see if there was any apples on the table, and he couldn't find any either. So two people are saying that there was no apples on that table. They were looking for an apple and they couldn't find any. But as soon as I get home, I find an apple on the table. And then I turn around and I've got 3 aprons hanging up on one of my walls. And I turn around and I brushed up against one of them, and I looked down and something caught my eye, and I looked at this apron. It was an apron that we inherited from his grandmother when she passed away. I've had this apron in my house hanging there in plain sight for like 5 years, and not once did I ever notice that this apron is full of apples. And then I'm looking at it and I'm like, wow, how did I never notice this? It's been 5 years and this has got apples all over it. And then I look up and there's another thing his grandmother, we inherited. It's a little, art decor, and I was hanging on the wall right above, a little taller than the aprons, and I looked up and it's got a big apple on it too, and I never noticed it before. So I'm seeing apples everywhere, and I just know that this is God talking to me. And so I get a little excited. So I end up, later on that evening, I start writing on the contract to put an offer in right away. And then so by the time that my husband and I and my sister-in-law all got together and started talking about it that evening, I already had the contract written up. But it was just, I don't know. I felt like this was it. And I went over all the signs with them, and, my husband is trusting me to that I'm following God, and, he's going along with it. And so, we're sitting here talking about how I'm telling them how I feel like we need to put an offer in on this house. And then suddenly I get an email, and it's from the seller's realtor. And she said, hey Tara, I know you went and looked at this house. Just want to let you know that we got offers in on it. Didn't know, were you wanting to put an offer in too? And the timing of that was just incredible, because the message I got from God all day long, and there were some scriptures pointed out to me earlier that day I didn't talk about that goes along with all this. But the message I got from God all day long is, yes, I was supposed to put an offer on the house, and I was supposed to move quickly. And so we're right in the middle of all this, and suddenly she emails me and says, are you going to put an offer in? We got other offers. Now remember, this is a hot market. Houses are going quickly, very, very quickly, within a matter of hours to a couple of days, most of them. And this house has been on the market, I don't know how I missed it, because I didn't see it until just recently, but this house was on the market for 22 days. Yeah, 22 days, and it never had any offers on it. And then the one day that all this happens and I'm supposed to put an offer in, she gets offers on this property. It was almost like God was holding off all the offers until I got mine in. That's what I felt like. And so we put an offer in. And here's the thing though, I wasn't pre-approved with the bank yet. I wasn't pre-approved. I needed still to go through that step, and I hadn't sold my house yet either. So this contract was subject to me being approved, getting the money, and selling my house. And so I was worried about that, because other offers, may not have all those contingencies, and so I was concerned, and so I put an offer in, and she emailed me back and she said, have you been pre-approved for a loan? And I had to be honest with her. I said, no, I'm not. I just really love the house, and I feel like I need to, put an offer in on it, but unfortunately I can't finish the approval process until next week. And I was shocked. I was completely shocked. But later on, not long after that, she got back with me and she said, okay, so we have offers. They're very similar, but they are willing to wait a couple of days to see if you are able to get pre-approved before they make a decision on what offer they want to proceed with. And I was shocked, and so I was like, great, that's awesome. And so she said, we can give you till Monday, because that's when the acceptance deadline is on the other offers, was Monday. And so Monday, I had to get on the ball. So fast forward, it's Monday now. I'm at work. I immediately apply for the loan, and I go through all those steps. Okay, it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The bank calls me back and says that they could not approve me, not before selling my house. And and they just, and not only that, but I wanted to go through a certain type of loan, and they apparently didn't have that anymore, which they used to. That's how I got my first house. So I wish they would have told me that before I applied with them. But regardless, I got denied. And so I was shocked. I was flabbergasted. I was very, very upset. And honestly, I felt completely lost, because for the last several years, I have always based everything off of these signs that God gives me, whether it's in my spirit or it's, physical, or, I always follow his signs. And so I felt it, that God was sending me to this house, and I just knew it. And so whenever I got denied, I was completely lost. I didn't understand. I was in my car, and I was praying to God, and I was crying, and I was upset, and I was like, God, I think what I'm upset about the most is not about not getting the house, but the fact it's the signs. Am I being tricked? Is the spirit tricking me? Am I being led by something else other than you? Because I've always thought that it was you, because every sign I follow, it leads me to something more prosperous. And so I just, I've always believed it came from you. And so I was very lost. I was very sad. I didn't know what to do. And I'm sitting in my car, and I prayed all this to God, and I was asking him to help me, give me clarity. And I, was about to go back inside. In fact, I think I even put my car into drive to drive back around by the back door. And suddenly this woman's name popped into my head. And I won't say what her name is, but she's another banker with a different bank. My boss had worked with this woman a few times. And, she's super sweet, super nice. I personally didn't have a working relationship with, well, I guess I did through my boss. But, she's so sweet, so nice. And so for some reason she popped into my head. And remember, this is like 3:00 in the afternoon. And so I brushed it off. I said, no, I'm not going to call her. And not only that, but she's 30 minutes away in another town. And I was like, no, I'm not going to call her. But then her name popped into my head again, and then I was trying to ignore it, and then it popped into my head again. And now when something like that keeps popping into your head, like the apple, you need to act on it, because that's God giving you those memories, those messages. Okay, so I was like, fine, I'll call her. So I look her up, and I call her to get her on the phone. She doesn't answer her phone. So I end up leaving her a voicemail. And I start thinking, well, I guess there's still hope, but man, this is a long stretch. And so I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what's going on, what's happening. I'm worried about me following the wrong signs. And I was just feeling very discouraged. So I was like, I'm just going to go back into work, get my mind on work, and, move on. And so I do that. And so I go to work for a little bit, and then I go to the restroom, and I come back to my office. And while I was in the restroom, apparently I had a missed call. I looked at my phone, there was a missed call, and it said from the town that I called, her at. And so I knew it was her. So I grabbed my phone, I rushed outside, and I called the number back, and I said, hey, this is Tara. I was just giving you a call back. Thank you for calling me back. The woman on the phone was not the woman I tried to call. The woman on the phone said, yes, Tara, thank you for calling. My name is blank, and I was told to give you a call from blank, the woman I originally tried to call. And she told me that she's worked with Jack. That's my boss. She has worked with you, and she's worked with Jack for a long time, and that you guys are very special clients, and I'm supposed to help you out and with whatever I can do. So what can I do for you, honey? That's what she said. I paused for a second because I was surprised. But I was like, because I always really thought, I mean, she's just a wonderful woman. The banker that kept popping into my head, she's a wonderful woman. But I was so grateful that she wanted to help me that bad. And so I was a little surprised, and I was like, well, in that case, here's what's going on. So I relayed to her the story about being denied from the other bank, and how I own my own home now, and they said I need to sell it first. And she said, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do, honey. I'm going to get you an application. I'm going to email it to you right now. You fill that out, turn it in with some